everyone, welcome to my channel. I talk a lot about writing, creativity and sometimes different things like history, etc. So today I thought I would talk about what I learnt from this book, Write Like Hemingway. The funny story of how I actually got this book is I went to a town in upstate New York and they were giving books away for free, and I decided to take this because I was like, well, Hemingway was, a really great writer. So is there anything that I could learn from this? And it's almost taken me a year or 2 years since I got this to actually read it, and I thought I would try it. So I am actually in the Highlands of Scotland at the moment, so I'm just filming on my phone. I don't really have anything to set up the camera. It's actually in a stack full of books at the moment. Alright, anyway, let's dive right into the book, right? So this is mostly things that I found really interesting that I thought maybe other writers or creatives might be able to find something useful. So basically, Hemingway used to have rules that he used to follow because he was a reporter for the Daily Star, and one of the rules was to avoid the use of adjectives, especially such extravagant ones as splendid, gorgeous, grand, magnificent, etc. The writer's voice was incredibly important to Hemingway, and he would say that most writers don't keep at the craft long enough to develop that voice and gain an understanding of what it means to tap into the internal author. Writing well can be as natural as breathing, and somewhere within us all is that natural voice, a voice that is the equivalent of a smile directed at someone we care deeply about. I thought was a really interesting way to describe what a voice is. So it's just something that is very distinct to each and every individual and writer. It kind of made me feel like, don't worry too much about what my voice is. It's something that is a bit more natural. That's kind of what I got from it. I don't know if that's what you got from it. You can, what you think about some of these quotes and things that he said. In one interview that Hemingway done, he said that a writer who trains himself to register important facts gleaned from reality. Find what gave you the emotion, what the action was that gave you the excitement, then write it down, making it clear so that the reader will see it too and have the same feeling that you had. I thought that this was quite interesting because for me, I think focusing so much on the plot in this first draft and the different editions of edits that I'd done, it can be kind of difficult to remember what the emotion that I was trying to convey was, or sometimes I did notice that it was helpful to use scenarios from your real life that kind of take the emotions from that and kind of apply it to the different scenes that I was working on related to it, I guess. However, on the note about the voice, this writer who is talking about Hemingway says that his voice was basically kind of all over the place and you should take his advice with a grain of salt, basically. But Hemingway did recognise that thinking too hard about formal technique could be a major stumbling block on producing text. Basically, don't think too much about it and just kind of keep writing. This was particularly interesting, he said. Like most writers, he had quirks, even superstitions about getting started, getting back to work, and making sure the voice he had spent so long cultivating never became compromised. What he would do is, quote, saying, "Sometimes when I was starting a new story and could not get it going, I would sit in front of the fire and squeeze the peel of the little oranges into the edge of the flame and watch the sputter of blue that they made. I would stand and look out over the roofs of Paris and think, 'Do not worry, you always have written before and you will write now. All you have to do is write one true sentence, write the truest sentence that you know.' So finally I would write one true sentence and then go in from there." I thought that was quite interesting. I don't know if I actually have any superstitions or anything that comes to mind when I sit down to write, though I have been doing this thing the last couple of days because I have had a little bit of an editor's block, let's say, because it's not truly a writer's block. I do have the ideas, it's more of a like, which one do I pick? Like, I don't know what to do. It's like being really overwhelmed. And what I've been doing is I have been thinking like, okay, I want to channel you now, like to my main character. Like, what would you actually be thinking and feeling, and why are you doing these things? Instead of just, oh, what would she be doing? It's more like, okay, I'll let you come and dictate what I do now. And then I kind of skipped through a lot of other things, but I gathered that I don't have all day to be going through this entire book because I think it took me many hours to read it all. So one big thing that he followed is character is plot, which is a phrase that's mostly frequently attributed to Gustave Flaubert, but a number of writers have claimed authorship over the years. The writer here explains that plot builds like coral gradually as the central figure's personality and actions increase the tension. The process is organic. The more out of step personality is with the situation into which she is thrust, the more opportunity there is for plot, which is so interesting for me because I spent a lot of time in my early drafts thinking, what would be the best plot? I just need to do things that increase the tension, like things need to happen all the time. And that was my thinking, like, how do I make this plot better than it is? But in reality, when I would divert out of the plot that I was coming up with and my characters were doing their own thing, that's when I really felt like, wow, this is actually going somewhere. Like, what are they actually going to do? Because they're kind of like in an impossible situation, but they're not me. What are they gonna do to get out of this? One thing that the writer says is Hemingway labored to get it just right. In A Movable Feast, he notes that he had started to break down all his writing and get rid of all facility and try to make instead of describe, but it was very difficult and he did not know how he would ever write anything as long as a novel. It took him a full morning of work to write a paragraph. And I thought that was insane because even Hemingway felt discouraged at one point. He thought it was an enormous task to write a full-length novel because he used to write a lot of short stories and he used to write for the news, right? He was a news reporter. So he thought of a full book made him think, like, how am I ever gonna do this either? And he only wrote a small paragraph in the morning. So if you are sitting there thinking, how am I going to finish this book? Just remember Hemingway also thought that at one point. And look at where his books are today. I guess that did make me feel really good when I read it the other night, because I was thinking, how am I ever going to edit this? And I was thinking that when I first started writing my book, I don't think I'll ever be able to finish this. Like, why am I doing this? This sounds insane. Like, what did I think was going to happen? But I guess even the greats felt that way at one point, and it's great encouragement, I guess. A quote that Hemingway said, which I thought was pretty powerful, is, "When writing a novel, a writer should create living people, not characters. A character is a caricature. If a writer can make people live, there may be no great characters in his book. But it is possible that his book will remain as a whole, an entity, as a novel. People in a novel, not skillfully constructed characters, must be projected from the writer's assimilated experience, from his knowledge, from his head, from his heart, and from all there is of him. If he ever has luck as well as seriousness and gets them out entire, they will have more than one dimension, and they will last a long time." And I thought that was really, really interesting, that it is true. A lot of characters and a lot of the story is coming from the experience of that person's life. And sometimes the people that lived these crazy lives really do write the most amazing stories. And I guess it really does go hand in hand that, if you do live an exciting, crazy, with the good and the bad, it's going to transfer to your writing. And there is a time and place for the really cozy books, where sometimes I kind of feel like the writer had more of like a really cozy life or something, let's just say, where you can just read from it that maybe they didn't suffer as much as what they are making their characters suffer through, that there just isn't that, I don't know what to say, like that oomph, like that feeling, that emotion, there just isn't. And that's not to say I didn't enjoy their book or something like that. There's a time and place for those types of books too, but you can definitely see the difference in another writer who is writing about someone who is going through something or suffering, and the way that they bring it is great. Like, the way that they can show it is just so deep and so powerful that you're like, yeah, they definitely went through something. And you go and read about them, and then you find out, yeah, they really did go through something, But I think we don't want to like romanticize too much about, you have to suffer and all of that to create great art or something, because I think some people take that a bit too far, where they put themselves through things and situations to be like they are doing it to better their art or their self. I don't know, I've just heard of some people doing that. You know what I mean? Another direct quote from this book is, "Creative writers should keep in mind that while an appropriate dose of settings is important in framing a work of fiction, and the intersection of a charismatic figure into that setting is usually even more vital. Something has to happen to that character in order to draw a reader on. Otherwise, we have a sketch, a descriptive profile of someone that is a valid form of composition but lacks the grandeur and richness of a text with room for dramatic development." And the something has to happen factor should be the beginning of a series of events in which every action increases the tension. How do I feel about that? Yeah, I think that was solid advice. Another direct quote that I really liked from Hemingway, which was from a 1958 Paris Review interview. And he said, "A writer can be compared to a well. There are as many kinds of wells as there are writers. The important thing is to have good water in the well, and it is better to take a regular amount out than to pump the well dry and wait for it to refill." And I think that is so true. You would rather definitely work on your book or creativity in smaller doses and then allow a lot of rest. Because I definitely have done the opposite of that, where I was like, I have all of this time off right now, I don't have anything to do, I should just be sitting there writing all day, or just forcing myself to just keep going, even when I felt like I wasn't really doing anything to replenish that well of doing fun things and activities and having enough breaks and those things that just light you up as a person. Though, and not doing them and then expecting this creativity to be this never-ending stream that just keeps coming, and your well-being is definitely connected to how creative you are. I really think that was a really, really nice piece of advice that I guess is tried and tested to be true. One thing that is so cute is this. Write as long as you can live. That is really cute. Knowing what happened to him in the end, it's quite sad to see that. One thing that Hemingway says is this: a lot of writers write when there is nothing to say and there is no water in the well because they are ambitious. Basically saying that that is slop. Well, I wonder what he would say now. Books and art being pumped out one after the other just because something has to be there. I wouldn't really say that is true for a lot of the books that I have recently read, but I can say that is true for a lot of movies and TV shows that I've watched where honestly there was nothing to say and it can kind of just feel like, as he said, slop. He says also, writers are ruined first by money, the first praise, the first attack, the first time they find they cannot write, or the first time they cannot do anything else. Yeah, so that is a lot to unpack right there in that one sentence. I mean, I don't really want to go into the specifics of each and everything he says in this. Ruined by the first money. I obviously haven't had that happen to me yet. The first praise, I don't think it ruined me, but it was my family. The first attack hasn't happened yet. The first time they find they cannot write, or the first time they cannot do anything else. That is, I don't even have the words. Because the first thing is the way that he died. You know, a lot of it was to do with the fact that he couldn't write, and that's really sad. But he's also saying where writing is the only thing you do. And that's something that I guess I don't really know what any of that really feels like, but I can kind of imagine it. And the fact about where you only write, if you only do one thing, I think it will take all of the joy and passion out of it. I think you do have to have balance, even if you do something like write for a really long time. Well, not if you write really deeply for a couple of days or weeks, and then you do need the break if you are going to do that. I don't know how some people really do keep producing so much content. I guess in that I actually kind of think of content creators where they really truly pump it out like crazy. So on that other note, when I said that having this really big life does make your writing better, and here he actually says, what a great advantage an experience of war was to a writer. He also mentions Tolstoy as someone gravely affected by war, and Flaubert, who experienced not war but revolution. Dostoevsky's war was political and he was sent off to Siberia. Stendhal had seen Napoleonic War. Hemingway observed that writers are forged in injustice as a sword is forged. I don't know, but that is... So I'm not glorifying that you needed to experience all of this terrible trauma to become a better writer. But I guess it is something that they always say, like the duality of life, right? You see the bad, and I guess they alchemized that into something that you can read about. Like, these stories have so much depth and soul, I guess, and that's the reason for it. But I feel like in the modern day, I really don't want any experience of war or things like that. But it does come with its many challenges and many terrible things. And for me personally though, I think that quote was really strong for me. That writers are forged in injustice as a sword is forged. I don't know if you were here for my other videos, but I did mention a few times about getting sick, and that kind of like pushed me into writing and creativity. So I kind of felt like that was a different way of looking at it, of maybe I don't see it yet, but maybe it has made me a better writer, or at least I have taken that pain and transformed it into something else. So I guess it makes me feel a bit better and not just, oh, this tragedy happened to me and it was all for nothing. I don't know. Maybe I'm trying to make myself feel better, but I guess it kind of just makes me feel a little bit like maybe I can see it in a different angle. That angle being not something that I feel the benefits of yet. Like, I think it was absolutely horrible and I wish it never happened to me, but yeah. And I think that can like keep you kind of down for a little bit. When something bad happens to you, you kind of, you know that's how trauma etc works, right? It kind of loops your brain and you feel like you can't really get out of that mindset, and you just keep thinking, this terrible thing happened, why did it happen to me, it shouldn't have happened to me. But seeing this quote like at, I don't know, it was like 2 a.m. at night, and I remember just being like, wow, it kind of just felt like a message for me from the universe. From Hemingway, but from the universe. And lastly, this quote was one of the best things I think you can hear as a writer, which is, don't get discouraged because there's a lot of mechanical work to writing. There is, and you can't get out of it. I rewrote A Farewell to Arms at least 50 times. You've got to work it over. Oh my gosh. It is just so nice to hear, I think. Someone who was as established as Hemingway at that time, that he said that there's a lot of mechanical work to writing. I guess I had this image in my head that if you were to do something creative like writing or anything really, you love for it and for creativity will kind of overpower everything, where you don't feel discouraged as much and things like that. I kind of thought, maybe if I am coming to this many challenges and it makes me feel down about them, it's not for you. I think a little bit of that is just how modern day is. Everything is kind of made easy, and to me, I kind of overtly romanticized creative work, that it had to be different from normal work, where you are kind of hating your normal work. That bad for me to be thinking that. I was thinking creative work shouldn't really feel like actual work and it should be enjoyable most of the time. I kind of came into it thinking that was gonna fix everything in my life and make me super happy all the time. But I guess it doesn't work that way. Anyway, I don't know if you actually found some useful things from everything I've told you. If something did make you think differently or affected you, please let me know in the comments, because I would like to know if it changed your mind or kind of made you feel better. And if you enjoyed it, then I hope that you will like and subscribe so that you can stay for the journey of my writing life and everything else that comes with it.